So after I've pressed snooze like 30 times, I finally drag my tired body out of bed and get myself dressed as quickly as possible for the day.
Come on, Bexy. Bexy, that's my shirt.
As soon as I'm ready, I head out to the barn to get started because I always have a million things to do and there's no time to waste. Okay, well, unless you're playing with Baxi, then that's okay. But anyways, the first thing I do when I get out to the barn is unlock the front door so that people can get in to see their horses and stuff. I normally get started around 7 a.m. in the winter because I don't like waking up while it's still dark, so I just keep ignoring my alarm until it's daylight and pretend like it's okay. As far as chores go, beet pulp is always the first thing I do because it needs a while to soak and the little piglets like to eat as soon as possible, so I try to keep them happy by having their food ready as quickly as I can. Piggies have some hay to keep them occupied, I get started on stalls because I've yet to find a way to teach them how to shovel their own shit. Our stalls get done every single morning. On average, I would say it takes me around 5 to 6 minutes per stall. I have tons of practice shoveling shit, so I can get them done pretty quick now. I work on stalls until it's time to feed, which is normally around 8:30 a.m., although some days it will be a little earlier or later depending on what's going on. Before I pass out breakfast, there are some horses that have to come in first. Flash always comes in for a bit in the morning because he stays pretty chunky on his own, so he doesn't get any grain, but the other horses in his pasture do. Sometimes there will be other horses that need to come in too, which today happened to be the case. So I think Baxter is outside and FedEx just pulled in the driveway and I'm too shy to go out there and get him. So I'm just gonna wait for FedEx to drop off whatever they're dropping off. And hopefully my dog doesn't leave with FedEx. Baxi, get in the barn. Another big part of my morning, well, really my whole day, includes trying to keep track of Baxter, which doesn't always go very well. But anyways, in addition to beet pulp, the horses get a scoop of Tribute Calm Ultra. Once all of the grain is in the feed pans, then I begin passing them out. What you can't see or hear right now are the horses freaking out, pawing and screaming because they just heard me scooping grain, and once that happens, whatever little patience they possess just goes right out the window, and suddenly it's the end of the world to them if they don't get their food now. The horses inside get their grain first, and then I load up the rest of the grain to take for the horses outside. They do a pretty good job at eating outside together, so that's the way I do it, since it isn't too realistic for me to bring them all in to eat and then turn them back out when I'm doing chores by myself and then have to ride 8 to 9 horses and then do evening chores. Basically what I'm saying is feeding them together works and it saves me a lot of time. I try to time when I feed with when I need to go dump the pony shit out of the RTV so that I can get it all done in one trip and save time that way as well. Typically after I feed, I still have 1 to 2 stalls left, so that's what I finish up next. Once the stalls are done, I dump the RTV again and then park it at the front of the barn. I still had the feed pans that I grabbed from outside earlier in the RTV, so I got those put away too. The next task is to sweep the aisle because it gets quite messy, and if there's one thing I can't stand, it's a dirty barn aisle. Once the aisle is clean, then it's time to get the horses fresh water. This is by far what I hate doing the most, but I still make sure it gets done every morning. Now, normally I have a very chaotic way of doing waters. Typically what I do is I'll dump one stall's buckets and then start filling them up, and then while those are filling, I'll go dump the next stall's buckets and just continue on like that until all the waters are done. I've kind of turned it into like a little challenge for myself to get all the buckets dumped and filled without ever having to turn the water off, so needless to say it can be a little chaotic, which for filming purposes is why I couldn't do it that way today. When the horses in Flash's pasture are done eating breakfast, I'll put Flash back outside. While I'm out there, I check on the outside waters and use it as an opportunity to fill those up if need be. The last thing I do for morning chores is get all the feed pans from outside, which is sometimes made difficult when Frankie and Cora's decide it's a fun idea to fight over them. I like to get the feed pans in the morning so that I will already have enough in the barn when it's time for evening feed. Morning chores take me anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours to get done, depending on how many stalls there are and if Baxter and the horses feel like cooperating, which I can tell you right now is not often. Per usual, Baxter made another escape attempt. After retrieving him, I got started on the horses that I needed to ride. I like to try and ride 2 to 3 horses before I stop and eat lunch because that way I feel like I've accomplished something and I usually won't feel overwhelmed for the rest of my day. So this is pretty much my routine every single day. I wake up, get dressed as quickly as I can, skip breakfast, and get out to the barn as early as possible so that I can get chores over with and get started on what takes up the majority of my day. Riding. Occasionally, I'll have some help with chores, but for the most part, it's just me. It can get pretty repetitive, especially when you've been doing it for over 10 years, so you have to find ways to keep it fun, which is why I started doing that goofy little water bucket challenge. You've got to really, really love the horses to wake up every single day and do the same thing over and over.